Alien instructor broke the Deathworlder girl's nose. 30 seconds later, his arm was snapped. Medical emergency in training. Hall 7, Instructor Korvax just broke the human trainee's nose, and command, she's laughing. Director Zylax's secondary heart seized as the words crackled through his comm implant. He abandoned his morning reports and sprinted toward the monitoring station, his chitinous legs clattering against the polished floor. Training Hall 7's live feed materialized on the holographic display, and what he saw made his primary brain question whether his optical nerves had finally degraded after 3 centuries of service. Blood, everywhere. The crimson fluid, distinctly human hemoglobin based on the color saturation, splattered across the training mat in patterns that suggested arterial spray. At the center of the carnage stood Instructor Korvax, his massive Croath frame frozen in absolute horror, his 4 arms held away from his body as though they'd been contaminated with plague spores. And there, sitting cross-legged on the blood-soaked mat, was the human trainee. She was laughing, not the hysterical laughter of shock, not the desperate, broken laughter of someone whose mind had fractured under trauma. This was genuine amusement, the kind of sound someone made when their friend told a particularly good joke. The human, Mia Jones according to her academy file, had her head tilted back, blood streaming from her nose which was bent at an angle that made Zylax's breakfast threaten rebellion. "Oh my God," Mia said between chuckles, her voice slightly nasal from the injury. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. I didn't even see that coming. That was actually pretty good. She wiped blood from her chin with the back of her hand, smearing it across her training uniform. Can we run it again? I want to see if I can block it this time. Korvax made a sound like a dying engine. Block? Block, your nasal structure is completely compromised. Your facial bones have been fractured. You require immediate medical intervention. Oh, this? Mia gestured vaguely at her face, where her nose was definitely not where a nose should be. Yeah, it's broken. I can feel it. But we're in the middle of a lesson, right? I've played soccer games with worse. The emergency medical team burst through the training hall doors, their hover stretcher deployed and ready. Led medical tech. Azila took one look at the scene and immediately began shouting protocols into her comm device. Category 5 trauma, prepare surgical bay, alert the human physiology specialist, possible cerebral hemorrhage. I'm fine, Mia called out cheerfully, waving at the medical team with her blood-covered hand. Seriously, it's just a broken nose. Happened to my brother twice playing hockey. Well, 3 times, but the last one was technically a re-break of the second one. Zylax activated his direct command channel. Instructor Korvax, report. What happened? The Kroth's voice came through shaky and uneven. Sir, I was demonstrating the Tithian disarm sequence. The human requested a full-speed demonstration. I calibrated my strike force to 40% standard, well within safety parameters for Deathworlder physiology, according to her intake assessment. The strike connected with her facial structure during the defensive counter. I immediately ceased all training activities and summoned medical assistance. 40%? Zylax felt his chromatophores flash distress yellow. That's enough force to shatter a Vorgian's skull plate. I am aware, sir. Korvax's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I have just ended my career. I have caused catastrophic injury to a trainee. I am prepared to submit my resignation and face whatever tribunal. Guys, I'm sitting right here, Mia interrupted, getting to her feet with disturbing ease for someone who should have been unconscious. And I'm telling you, this isn't catastrophic. It's annoying, sure, but catastrophic? She laughed again, the sound sending visible ripples of confusion through the assembled medical team. Azila approached cautiously, medical scanner extended. Trainee Jones, please remain still. You are experiencing severe trauma and may not be aware of the full extent of your injuries. Shock can mask pain receptors and... She stopped speaking as her scanner's readings cascaded across her datapad. Her bioluminescent patches flickered through several colors that in her species indicated profound confusion. This is not possible. What? Mia asked, still smiling despite the blood coating her lower face. Is it bad? Do I need surgery? Your cranial structure is intact, Azila said slowly, as though speaking an alien language for the first time. No fractures to the orbital bones. No subdural hematoma. No brain swelling. Your nasal bones are displaced, yes, but the surrounding structures show no damage. The blood loss is minimal, barely 0.03 liters. Your blood pressure is elevated but stable. Your neural activity is normal. You're experiencing pain, but your body is already initiating rapid healing protocols that I've never seen outside of military-grade genetic modifications. Cool, Mia said. So can we finish the lesson? I really want to get that disarm sequence down before next week's evaluation. The training hall fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Zilax watched through the monitor as every being in that room, instructors, medical staff, and the dozen other alien trainees who'd been practicing in the adjacent section, stared at the human with expressions ranging from disbelief to existential dread. Korvax found his voice first. No, absolutely not. Training is suspended. You require medical treatment. I require to file 17 different incident reports. The Academy requires to review all safety protocols. You cannot simply continue training with a broken facial structure. Watch me, Mia said, and before anyone could, stop her! She reached up and grasped her displaced nose between her thumb and forefinger. Wait, Azila started. The crack echoed through the training hall like a gunshot. Mia had just reset her own nose, by hand, without anesthesia, without medical supervision. She'd simply grabbed the broken bones and shoved them back into approximately the correct position with the same casual energy someone might use to crack their knuckles. There, she said, her voice clearer now that her nasal passage was somewhat restored. Blood still flowed freely, but she seemed utterly unbothered. That's better. Little crooked still, but it'll heal. Now can we please run that sequence again? I'm paying a lot of money for this training, and I want to actually learn something. One of the other trainees, a Pelian whose species was renowned for their fragility, fainted directly onto the mat. Zilax made a decision. I'm coming down there. By the time he reached Training Hall 7, the situation had somehow not improved. Mia had acquired a training towel and was using it to catch the blood still dripping from her nose, but she remained standing on the mat, bouncing slightly on the balls of her feet like she was warming up for exercise. Korvax looked like he was calculating the quickest route to the nearest escape pod. Trainee Jones, Zilax said, using his full directorial authority voice. I am ordering you to accompany Medical Tech Azila to the medical bay for proper treatment. Mia turned to face him, and he got his first clear look at her face. The human was young, barely past adolescence by her species standards. Her nose was swollen and still bleeding, bruises already forming under both eyes. She should have been unconscious, or at least in severe shock. Instead, she looked mildly annoyed, like someone who'd been interrupted in the middle of an important task. Director, with respect, I'm fine. I've broken my nose before. Fell off a ladder at work last year. This is actually less bad than that time because at least here I have good health insurance. Back on Earth, I just iced it and went back to making lattes. She gestured at Korvax with the bloody towel. The instructor didn't do anything wrong. I asked for full speed. I wanted to see what I was up against. Now I know, and I can adjust my defense accordingly. You cannot adjust your defense to prevent broken bones, Korvax said, his voice strained. That is the entire point of the calibrated strike system. The force levels are designed to push trainees to their limits while preventing actual structural damage. I have been teaching for 40 standard years. I have never broken a trainee's bone. Never. And now... Oh, come on, Mia interrupted. You're being dramatic. It's a broken nose, not a severed limb. I'll be fine in 2 weeks? 3 at most. Just tape it up, give me some painkillers, and let's keep going. Zillax felt a headache forming in his primary brain. Trainee Jones, you are not understanding the severity. No, you're not understanding, Mia said, and there was an edge to her voice now, frustration bleeding through. I came here to learn combat. Real combat. Not some watered-down version where everyone's afraid I'll break. I'm from Earth. We break. It's kind of our thing. We heal and we move on. If you're going to train me to fight actual threats, then treat me like an actual fighter, not some fragile. Korvax moved. It wasn't an attack. The instructor was simply trying to prevent Mia from continuing her rant, placing one of his massive hands on her shoulder to guide her toward the medical team. A reasonable action. A caring action. The kind of thing any instructor might do to protect a stubborn trainee from their own bravado. His hand closed around her upper arm. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Mia's body reacted before her conscious mind could engage. Her free hand snapped up, grasping Korvax's wrist. Her body pivoted, dropping her center of gravity. Her other hand joined the first, creating a two-handed grip. Her hips rotated, using her body weight as leverage. The towel fell away as she twisted with practiced precision, applying force to the Kroth's joint in a direction it was never meant to bend. The snap was louder than when she'd reset her nose. Korvax's scream was a sound Zillax had never heard a Kroth make, high-pitched and agonized. The instructor collapsed to his knees, his right arm hanging at an impossible angle, compound fracture clearly visible where bone had pierced through his thick hide. Oh shit! Mia released her grip immediately, stumbling backward with her hands raised. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean, that was just reflex. Are you okay? Stupid question. You're not okay. I just broke your arm. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The training hall erupted into chaos. The medical team swarmed Korvax, scanners blazing, emergency stabilization fields deploying. Other instructors rushed forward. Alien trainees either fled or stood frozen in shock. And at the center of it all stood Mia Jones, a 19-year-old human from Earth, covered in her own blood, staring at her hands like they'd betrayed her. I took a self-defense class, she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the commotion. Back home, at the YMCA, it was just a 6-week course. They taught us wrist locks in week 3. I've been practicing them for 2 years, because I worked late shifts at the coffee shop and had to walk through bad neighborhoods and... Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt him. He grabbed my arm and I reacted. Zillax stood very still, his multiple brains working overtime to process what he'd just witnessed. The victim had become the attacker in less time than it took to draw breath. The injured trainee had inflicted severe harm on a decorated combat instructor, and most terrifying of all, she hadn't even meant to do it. Medical Tech Azila, he said, calmly, despite the crisis unfolding. Status on Instructor Korvax. Compound fracture of the primary radius equivalent, Azila reported, her voice professionally detached, even as her hands shook while applying stabilization foam. Joint dislocation, significant tissue trauma. He'll require surgical intervention and at minimum 6 weeks of recovery, possibly longer given his age. And trainee Jones? Still bleeding from the nose, mild shock setting in now, otherwise stable. Zillax watched as Mia sank to the floor, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. She was crying now, tears mixing with the blood on her face, apologizing over and over to Korvax, who was too busy screaming in pain to acknowledge her words. Someone call my office, Zillax said. Get me every file we have on Earth combat training, everything, basic education, military protocols, civilian self-defense courses, everything. And get me a connection to the human embassy. We need to have a very serious conversation about what exactly they've been teaching their species. 3 hours later, Zillax sat in his office, surrounded by holographic displays showing hundreds of human training videos. What he was watching defied everything he thought he knew about civilized species development. The videos showed human children, actual juveniles barely old enough for cognitive development, learning how to strike vulnerable areas on attackers. There were courses specifically designed for human females, teaching them to break bones, rupture organs, and cause maximum damage to larger opponents. Every human culture seemed to have some form of combat training integrated into their basic education or recreational activities. They called it self-defense, but the techniques were explicitly lethal. One video showed a human female instructor, elderly by their species standards, possibly 60 years old, demonstrating the exact wrist lock technique Mia had used. "If someone grabs your arm," the instructor said cheerfully, "you rotate through their weak point and snap. Don't hesitate. Don't pull your force. You break their arm, or you might not get another chance." The video had 17 million views and was categorized under basic life skills. Director? Azila entered his office, her bioluminescence dimmed with exhaustion. Instructor Korvax is out of surgery. He's stable. They managed to pin the bones, but he's looking at 8 weeks minimum before he can return to duty. He's asking about trainee Jones. Is he pressing charges? No, he's actually defending her, says she demonstrated proper defensive instinct and that he should have known better than to initiate unexpected physical contact with a Deathworlder trainee. He's requesting that she not be disciplined. Zilax gestured at his displays. "Come look at this. Tell me what you see." Azila studied the videos, her optical organs widening as she processed the content. These are tutorials for causing traumatic injury, available to any human with network access. They're teaching their offspring to fight like... She trailed off, searching for words. "Like prey species who have to fight for survival," Zilax finished. "Except humans aren't prey. They're apex persistence predators on a death world. They're teaching their most vulnerable population segments to inflict maximum damage because on their planet, that's normal. That's basic safety." The girl mentioned her brother broke his nose multiple times, Azila said quietly. Playing recreational games, they normalized catastrophic injury to the point where they continue playing sports with broken facial bones. And she mentioned her mother. Zilax pulled up another video, a middle-aged human woman cheerfully explaining how to use car keys as a stabbing weapon. 60 standard years old, still trained to kill. They don't age out of combat readiness. They just continue to be dangerous their entire lives. A chime indicated an incoming communication. The screen materialized, showing a human diplomat, Ambassador Patricia Anderson, according to her credentials. She looked tired. "Director Zilax," she said, "I understand we've had an incident. Ambassador, one of your species just broke a veteran combat instructor's arm using techniques she learned at what she described as a recreational community center. Then she apologized because apparently causing severe bodily harm was just reflex. I need you to explain to me how this is acceptable." Ambassador Anderson sighed. "Director, I've been doing this job for 15 years. Every single time a human enters a galactic institution, military, academic, civilian, we have this conversation. So let me be very clear. What happened today was not unusual for us. That young woman did exactly what she was taught to do when someone grabbed her unexpectedly. She used appropriate force to break a joint and create an opportunity to escape. That's standard personal safety training that millions of human women complete every year." Appropriate force? She shattered his arm. Did she use lethal force? Did she strike his throat, his eyes, his vital organs? Did she continue the assault after he released her? No? Then yes, she used appropriate and restrained force. She could have killed him, Director. The fact that she only broke his arm means she demonstrated remarkable control. Zilax felt his world tilting. "You're telling me that your species considers permanent maiming to be a restrained response? I'm telling you that our species grew up on a planet where we were surrounded by creatures that could kill us in seconds. We didn't have claws, venom, or natural armor. What we had was intelligence and the willingness to be absolutely ruthless when threatened. Every human carries that evolutionary memory. When we feel threatened, we don't posture or warn. We end the threat as efficiently as possible. It's not cruelty, Director. It's survival instinct coded into our DNA over millions of years. She broke her instructor's arm because he touched her shoulder. He grabbed her arm unexpectedly from behind, while she was already injured and elevated on adrenaline. That's basically every trigger we teach people to respond to. She probably didn't even consciously decide to do it. Her body just moved. The ambassador leaned forward. Director, here's what you need to understand. Humans don't have your species' social protocols about graduated response. When we feel threatened, we go from 0 to lethal in the time it takes to draw breath. That's not a flaw in our training. That's the training working exactly as intended. How do you function as a civilization? We teach consent from childhood. We teach people to ask before touching. We teach awareness of others' boundaries and trauma responses. We build societies with those principles embedded because we know what happens when they're violated. She gestured at something off-screen. That girl is probably devastated right now because she hurt someone who was trying to help her. That's also very human. We feel tremendous guilt when our defensive instincts harm people we don't perceive as threats. But the reflex itself, that's not going away. That's who we are. Zilax was quiet for a long moment. What do you recommend? Treat humans like loaded weapons. Predictable if you understand the safety protocols, but dangerous if you don't. Don't grab us unexpectedly. Don't corner us. Don't trigger fight or flight responses during training scenarios where we might mistake simulation for reality. And for the love of whatever gods you worship, don't assume that because we're friendly, we're not dangerous. Humans are always dangerous. We just choose not to be most of the time. After the call ended, Zilax made his way to the medical bay where Mia sat in a recovery room, her nose now properly set and bandaged, her eyes red from crying. She looked up when he entered, and he saw genuine fear there. "I'm getting expelled, aren't I?" she asked quietly. "No," Zilax said, sitting down in the chair across from her. "But we are going to have a very long conversation about human combat reflexes and how to prevent this from happening again." "I didn't mean to hurt him." "I know. Your ambassador explained. Apparently, you demonstrated remarkable restraint by not killing him." Mia let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. "That's such a human thing to say. Good job not murdering anyone today. God, we're so messed up." "You're survivors," Zilax corrected. "There's a difference. But Trainee Jones, I need you to understand something. This academy was not designed for species like yours. Our combat training assumes a baseline of social conditioning that prevents students from causing actual harm to instructors. You don't have that conditioning. Your species weaponized your weakest members as a survival strategy. We prefer to think of it as empowerment through education," Mia said, managing a weak smile. "But yeah, I guess when you put it that way, we're pretty scary." "Terrifying," Zilax agreed, "which is why we're going to implement new protocols. Human trainees will be flagged as reflex risk in all physical training scenarios. Instructors will be briefed on non-threatening approach methods. Physical contact will require explicit verbal consent every single time. And you," he fixed her with a serious look, "you will be teaching a seminar on human defensive reflexes so the rest of the academy understands what they're dealing with." "Me? Teach? I'm just a student." "You're a human who has completed standardized combat training that is apparently available at civilian recreational facilities. That makes you qualified to explain the baseline threat level your species considers normal. Besides, Instructor Korvax specifically requested it. He says if his broken arm prevents even one other instructor from making his mistake, the pain will be worth it." Mia's eyes welled up again. "He's not mad at me?" "He's a professional who made a tactical error. He grabbed an injured Deathworlder without warning. He knows it was his mistake." Zilax stood. "Go rest. Tomorrow we'll begin developing new protocols. And Mia, your nose will be fully healed in approximately 3 weeks according to your medical scan. Try not to break anything else in the meantime, including your instructors. Weeks later, Zilax watched through the monitoring station as Mia stood before a lecture hall of instructors and senior trainees. Her nose had healed slightly crooked. She'd refused reconstructive surgery, saying it gave her character, and she spoke with the casual confidence that he'd learned was typical of humans discussing violence. So the wrist lock I used on Instructor Korvax is what we call a gross motor skill technique, she explained, manipulating a holographic skeleton to demonstrate. It doesn't require fine muscle control, which means it works even when you're terrified and your hands are shaking. We teach it to teenagers because it's reliable. You don't have to be strong, you just have to understand leverage and be willing to break the joint. An instructor raised one of his appendages. But surely this is only taught to your military forces. Mia laughed. God, no. This is civilian stuff. Community center classes, church basement workshops, university orientation programs. My mom learned this technique when she was 16. My grandmother knew it. My little sister's learning it next year when she turns 13. It's like, I don't know, swimming lessons, just basic life skills. Your species teaches children to break bones as a life skill, the instructor said slowly. Well, yeah. Would you rather we taught them to politely ask their attackers to stop? Mia shrugged. Look, I get that it's weird from your perspective, but on Earth, we don't have the luxury of assuming everyone has good intentions. We teach our kids that if someone makes them uncomfortable, they have permission to hurt that person. We'd rather apologize for a broken bone than attend a funeral. The lecture hall was silent. The key thing to remember, Mia continued, is that we don't want to hurt you. Seriously, the fact that I cried for like 3 hours after breaking the instructor's arm should tell you that. Humans feel terrible when we hurt people we care about, but we've been prey for so long that our bodies react before our brains can stop them. So just don't grab us without warning. Don't corner us. Give us space to breathe. And if we do hurt you, understand it probably wasn't personal. It was just biology. After the lecture, Zilax found Mia in the cafeteria, ice pack pressed to her still tender nose, laughing with a group of human trainees. They were comparing scars from childhood injuries, each story more horrifying than the last. Broken bones, concussions, stitches, all treated as casual anecdotes, medals of a childhood well lived. One human mentioned getting trampled by a horse and walking it off. Another described falling through ice and nearly drowning, then going to school the next day. Mia shared her story of breaking her nose by walking into a glass door while texting, resetting it herself in the bathroom mirror, and finishing her shift at the coffee shop. Normal. For them, this was all completely normal. Zilax's comm chimed. It was the Galactic Military Council requesting a full report on human integration protocols. They'd heard about the incident and wanted to know if humans should be allowed in combat training at all. He looked at Mia, currently demonstrating the correct way to reset a dislocated finger to a horrified Pelian student. He thought about Ambassador Anderson's words. Humans are always dangerous. We just choose not to be most of the time. He began composing his response. Recommend full integration with modified protocols. Humans demonstrate exceptional combat instincts, rapid healing, and concerning casual attitude toward personal injury. Suggest treating as force multiplier rather than risk factor. Warning: do not startle. Do not grab without consent. Do not assume friendliness equals harmlessness. Properly managed, humans are valuable assets. Improperly managed, humans are expensive medical bills waiting to happen. He paused, then added one final line. Also recommend upgrading medical facilities. Humans break things, mostly themselves, but sometimes others. Usually by accident. Prepare accordingly. Mia looked up from her demonstration, caught his eye, and waved cheerfully. The ice pack fell away, revealing her healing nose, still slightly crooked, a permanent reminder of the day an alien instructor learned that breaking a human girl's nose was significantly less dangerous than what she'd been trained to do in response. She smiled, friendly, genuine, completely non-threatening. Zilak smiled back and made a mental note to never, ever grab a human trainee without explicit verbal consent. Some lessons, he reflected, were learned the hard way. At least Korvax would be able to teach again once his arm healed. The Kroth instructor had already sent a message saying he wanted to return to training humans specifically. Something about appreciating a species that treated broken bones as teaching moments rather than career-ending disasters. Mia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled wider, typing a quick response. Later, Zilax would learn she'd been texting her mother, "Military training is going great. Made some good friends. Learned a lot. Miss your cooking. P.S. Accidentally broke an instructor's arm, but he's not mad. Weird place. Love you." On Earth, her mother would read that message, sigh, and text back, "Just like when you broke your brother's nose in the bounce house. At least you're making friends. Stay safe, honey." Because on Earth, that was just another Thursday.